बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। ख़वातीन व हज़रात, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। ज़ुहैर हुसैन एक बार फिर प्रोग्राम एक्सपर्ट पैनल के साथ हाजिर खिदमत है। ख़वातीन व हज़रात, हमने यहाँ अहलियाने मेलबर्न ने we enjoyed 42 clear days of no locally transmitted cases, जो कि एक बहुत बड़ी मैं समझता हूँ विक्ट्री थी। एक बहुत अजीम और एक बड़े ट्रबलसम किस्म के सेक्रीफाइस के बाद रिस्ट्रिक्शंस आहिस्ता आहिस्ता हट रही हैं, काफ़ी हद तक हट चुकी हैं। लेकिन इसके साथ ही जैसे ही दोबारा से इंटरनेशनल ट्रैवल शुरू हुआ है, जो केसेस हैं वो फिर से वापस आ गए हैं। आज करंट सिनेरियो के ऊपर बात करने के लिए वी हैव अ स्पेशल गेस्ट, जो कि एक बड़ी इन्फ्लुएंशियल शख्सियत हैं। शी इज़ रिलेटेड एंड शी इज़ ए प्रैक्टिसिंग डॉक्टर। उनको हम अपने प्रोग्राम में आज मदऊ किया है। बगैर किसी ताख़ीर के मैं उनको शामिल।
And thank you so much for a nice introduction.
जी, it's my pleasure. I would like to, thank you for your time, कि आपने हमें वक्त दिया।
Anytime.
um, जैसे कि आपने सुना शुरुआत में कि केसेस फिर से वापस आ गए हैं। Obviously it's going to have its implications, or authorities have promised us that this time around, inshallah there shouldn't be any issue in terms of handling the incoming travelers. तो कोविड के ऊपर हम बात करने से पहले डॉक्टर आयशा, मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगा कि आप कब से मेडिकल के प्रोफेशन से वाबस्ता हैं? जस्ट टेल अस अ लिटिल बिट अबाउट योरसेल्फ।
ये अच्छा सवाल किया है जब आपने सवाल किया कि आप कब से वाबस्ता है मेडिकल के प्रोफेशन से। सो आई जस्ट स्टार्ट थिंकिंग कि मैं उस वक्त से सोचूं कि जब मैंने मेडिकल स्कूल ज्वाइन किया था या मैं प्रैक्टिसिंग डॉक्टर बन गई। तो अगर आई थिंक इफ आई टेक माय मेडिकल स्कूल एज वेल देन इट्स बीन 25 इयर्स अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह के मेडिकल के शोबे से किसी तरह से वाबस्ता रही हूँ। और पिछले लास्ट 10 इयर्स आई बीन वर्किंग एज ए मेडिकल ऑन्कोलॉजिस्ट। और ये कि इनिशियल जो मेरी स्टडीज थी वो पाकिस्तान से हैं। मैंने ज़ियाउद्दीन मेडिकल यूनिवर्सिटी कराची से अपना MBBS किया था एंड देन got married. That's the usual thing with what happens to our Pakistani community and females. And I came over to Australia and then started my journey from there.
राइट, राइट। तो जब आप ऑस्ट्रेलिया कब आई? किस साल में आई थी?
मैं 2003 में आई थी और अब ये कि मुझे 17 साल हो रहे हैं। और ऑस्ट्रेलिया में प्रैक्टिस करते हुए मुझे तकरीबन 16 साल हो गए हैं। क्योंकि यहाँ पे आते हैं तो जाहिर है आफ्टर फिनिशिंग योर MBBS यू कम एंड देन यू स्टार्ट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच। जैसे कि इंटर्नशिप से स्टार्ट किया था मैंने तकरीबन 16 साल पहले। एंड देन आई डिड माय ट्रेनिंग, all of my training in the medical oncology, which was FRACP, which is a fellowship of Royal Australian College of Physicians. And then I did further 3 years training in the medical oncology, and then few more years towards getting more subspecialty. So it's been a long journey, and but very rewarding.
Right. Do you think when doctors who migrate from Pakistan, when they come here and they need to do all these affiliations and all these other upgradations of their education and their specialities and whatnot, is it fair, the rigorous process that they put the doctors through?
I think it is required because if you look at the medical system in different countries, it's very different. So to be able to work in a different system and different community, you need to have some pre-existing knowledge of their protocols, their prevalent diseases, and their way of managing those diseases. So it is important. And I think it's fair to have the licensing exam because I think they check you or they assess you according to Australian standards. And that exam is for everyone, not just for Pakistanis. That's for even anyone come from India, from China, from even US, even UK. they go through the same process. So it's very fair, and I think that is required to be able to incorporate into the doctors community in Australia.
Excellent, excellent. When I was sent your brief, I read you are the president of Anzapp, Victoria. आप हमें इसके बारे में कुछ बताना पसंद करेंगे?
It's Anzapp Victoria के बारे में तो I guess I can talk for hours and hours, and thanks to my members and my Anzapp community. Anzapp basically it's an organization which is representing doctors from Pakistan who are working in Australia. So it's just like a group of doctors who have got Pakistani background and they are working in Victoria. So it's Anzapp Victoria, that is the Victorian chapter. And I guess if you look at the different aims uh, um, as well as the objectives for this organization is to basically is a network. It's making or having a network. It's a social connection as well as providing community. And when we work together, obviously, it's easier to others to look at us as well as raise the voice as a community, as a like a group. It's easier to get heard by the others. So it's rewarding again in the sense that it's a like a community of doctors all from Pakistan. We share and care. Obviously, we are all are in a different system, so it just we support each other if anyone is requiring any sort of support.
जी जी excellent. So obviously we have enjoyed a very good spell of COVID free Victoria, and now as soon as the international travel has been allowed back into the country, COVID has returned as well. So we've got 7 new cases apparently. तो क्या आप इस चीज को समझ रहे हैं? Do you think that we're going to have a third wave? Yeah, you think this time around it is going to be well managed and it'll be quite contained?
I think, Zuhair, it's a really relevant question for current situation. If I go back earlier this year, like back in March, the situation was very different. And again, in February, March, we didn't know much about this virus. We didn't know much about how to contain it, what could be the implication, and we have learned heaps over last few months' time. In particular, first wave, second wave in Victoria. And your question about third wave, I guess it's potential, but it's highly unlikely because of the fact that we have learned heaps, provided we continue to do right things like wearing mask, maintaining social distancing, and also following the government in terms of their regulation and the rules. Hopefully, we don't have a super spreader this time. And if we follow the quarantine policy well, I think it's unlikely that we're going to see third wave. Even if we get number of cases, I think we're going to manage it well this time because again, we are very well prepared.
Right. But ये इन इंटरनेशनल ट्रैवल जो आए हैं लोग बाहर से, इनके आने से पहले भी at times we would hear के in a certain area they've done some test on some sewer water, and they have found coronavirus traces. So
Mhm.
I mean, by going by that, is it fair to say that the virus was there in the community, but it simply just never got detected for the 42 days that we went COVID free?
I think we're talking about two different things.
Right.
The spread of the virus is through the aerosols or the droplets. And when someone has an infection, eventually they will shed and they will continue to shed virus in feces, in urine, and that's something which could be detected if you test the sewage lines in that area. And I think that's what you're referring to. That doesn't mean that that was the active infection. It was just indicative of that there was infection in the past. And again, so far we haven't had any spread of coronavirus through those like a fecal contamination or um, that sort of contamination as yet. So we haven't got any virus spread through that source. So the only source we know is the aerosols as well as the like a airborne.
तो अगर यहाँ से ये जो अभी आपने कहा है कि a person could be shedding virus. इसके बारे में थोड़ा बताएं कि कब तक ये आपके अंदर रहता है, और किस किस तरह से। और apparently there was a case जहाँ पे एक बंदे को हो चुका था, he had recovered from it, it actually came back. तो उसके बारे में मेडिकल साइंस क्या कहती है?
I think medical science is learning about this virus, and I'll be honest with you. I won't say that we know anything and everything about this virus. We are still learning. In terms of the incubation time, as you know, that people keep asking, keep saying that if someone is coming from overseas, they should have 2 weeks of quarantine. And the reason being is because that is the time when, if someone has virus, they might exhibit some symptoms. If they do not have symptoms, they are asymptomatic. That is the usual time period when they would become less infectious and won't be able to transmit to the others. Um, I guess how long they remain um, positive, that is the cutoff, like a 2 weeks, provided it was not a severe infection. In severe infection, it could continue for a bit longer, like it can go beyond 2 weeks. And again, most of those patients, they get admitted to hospital for the observation and the treatment. लेकिन जो एसिम्टोमेटिक है वो यूजुअली 2 वीक्स के बाद आप जो होते हैं वो आप ट्रांसमिट इन जनरल नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि वो उसके बाद उसकी ट्रांसमिशन का रेट बहुत लो हो जाता है.
Right.
सॉरी, मैं आपका लास्ट कमेंट क्वेश्चन जो था, और एक और आपने लास्ट कमेंट क्या कहा था? सॉरी,
कि
वो मेरे.
कि एक इंसान को डियर पार्क में अब वो आए, वो उसको
यस,
हुआ था,
यस, यस,
होने के बाद
री-इन्फेक्शन, या.
जी जी री इन्फेक्शन के बारे में कुछ बता दें.
I think this is still sort of difficult to say with confidence whether reinfection is possible. There have been reports of one or two or few reinfection all over the globe, but then the question is whether they were initially positive and then became negative and became positive, or whether they were in fact negative and had false positive and then became real positive. So there are many sort of scenario you could think of. When you talk about any infectious disease and having a reinfection, it's little unusual. But again, as I said, that we still learning about this virus. So what happens in general, whenever someone has had an infection, the body would start developing the immunity or antibody against that infection. So if the body get exposed again by the same infection or the virus, then your body would have immunity or the antibody to fight against that infection. And that is basically the basic mechanism of the vaccine production as well. So I guess reinfection is still sort of gray, hazy area to be able to say with confidence that's real or not.
Right. Obviously, you just said the magic word of vaccine. Um, so when, like, what is your understanding, and what the medical community in Melbourne is saying and talking about the Pfizer vaccine, which is most likely going to be the one coming to Australia as well? What do you guys think about that?
I think ultimately we need to have the vaccine because I think I would uh, also sort of rediscuss what we have talked about, that reinfection or first wave, second wave, third wave. Waves, any wave, like whether it's second wave, third wave, or fourth wave, it's possible, it's potential because it's an infectious disease. So if anyone come with the COVID positive virus and they are the spreader and they are the social butterfly person, then they're going to spread to community. And yes, so then there would be a spread of the COVID-19 again. The only way we can limit it, the only way we can eradicate it is to have vaccine. And there have been few vaccine trials in the past. And again, I think in general, just to make you a bit more, or to make you understand a bit more about the whole process of any medication or any vaccine, what happens first of all, it get tested in animals. Then phase 1 trial where it get tested on human being, and basically it is to look at the safety, how safe that particular medicine or the vaccine is. And then the phase 2 to look at also safety and these efficacy, whether that's effective for particular virus or particular disease. And then it goes on to the phase 3 trial where it would be then available to the community, but then the community people would be compared with the placebo, where a group of people receive vaccine and a group of people will not receive vaccine, and you will see, follow them up, and you say whether that has been effective or not. I think COVID is a little different because in the sense that it is pandemic. So the whole process in general takes many years to develop any vaccine. But for COVID, because we needing a vaccine, the whole process of from animal to phase 1 to phase 2 and phase 3, I guess it has gone very quickly. Now, in terms of vaccine, as you would have heard, that there were 3 to 4 different drug companies which had collaboration with the Australian government to be able to provide the vaccine. And one of the product was then taken off because people who received the vaccine, they turn out to have a positive test for HIV. So this is a learning curve. What happened was basically the antigen which was used. Antigen is basically the protein which was used to manufacture or to make the vaccine, has a similar DNA like or the DNA sequence like a HIV, and that's why the patient result came back positive for HIV. It's not that they had the HIV infection. So it's sort of a learning curve. Now, coming back to the question of vaccine, I guess we are hoping, as I said, that that would be the only way we be able to eradicate the infection or be able to control the infection. Otherwise, we'll be seeing third, fourth, or fifth wave is having a vaccine. And hopefully, like I think what we are hoping that maybe from March to April, that would be available to high risk population and maybe be available to the health professional first, and there would be then categories of different patients in the community. And the other complex thing is not just about the vaccine. We have to bear in mind that yes, we have vaccine available. How are we gonna vaccinate the whole community within shorter interval? That is the other thing. How are we gonna utilize the resources? What gonna be the protocols? But it's looking promising in terms of the vaccine. And the last complex thing, which is again from the medical point of view, is really complex. It's whether the vaccine will provide you lifetime immunity or whether someone will require revaccination after a period of time to have the like a complete immunity against the virus. So this is something which we will learn as we go because again, it's we have to it has to be developed on a shorter time period and had to be rolled out in the community in a shorter time period. So I think we would learn as we go.
Now, some people we're hearing that just general public's opinion that they don't feel comfortable, they don't really trust the vaccine, and as a result, they're saying that if the policymakers are gonna make it mandatory, then they won't be getting, they would not. Um, they would want the decision of taking the jab to be left on an individual. What's your opinion and what's your sort of stance on this?
I think if you talk about coronavirus, there was a group of people who doesn't believe on coronavirus. Although we, as a health professional, seeing people dying of coronavirus, we are seeing patient admitted with coronavirus, so it's real. I think that came or implied to the vaccine and acceptance to get vaccinated as well. In terms of the vaccination, I think it needs to be done, or the vaccination or the whole community need to be vaccinated in a shorter time period. It's not that it would be done in a drip and drop, while that you do just a part of the community, because otherwise it's going to take years and years to be able to control the COVID-19. So vaccine is the only way that you'll be able to have immunity against the virus. And what we believe that the immunity someone will develop after the vaccine versus the immunity developed after having a virus or infection, the immunity with the vaccine is higher and it would be long lasting. So I think from medical point of view, it's very acceptable. From medical point of view, the whole community should consider and accept it. And again, even if you go back to any vaccine, even in the past many years ago, like chickenpox vaccine or polio vaccine, you know that there are thousand myths in the community. Even like if you go back Pakistan, like I remember when I was a medical student, we have had the polio campaign going into the community to community and giving drops to young kids to prevent the polio. And there was like a people they just in wanting them or their kids to have the polio vaccine because there were myths around that, oh, they would get this is something government wanting to stop the is it like a way of controlling the population and all those things. So you would have group of people, whatever you do, regardless, you would have group of people who be against of what you sort of discuss and prefer or you recommend as a medical practitioner.
Right. We're getting some comments as well, Dr. Aisha, and
Mhm.
I'd like us to maybe look at them. Um, okay, let's have a look. What's happening here? Now, the okay, so Malik Noman Radhani goes, सुबह उठते ही पानी पीना चाहिए. Well, I guess, of course, पीना चाहिए. But then उनका अगला comment है कि what are the benefits of sugar cane? क्या sugar cane हमारे subject से related है COVID से?
I don't see any direct relationship, to be honest.
Or is it
Um,
more of a dietitian question?
uh, Look, I'm not aware of any association between the COVID-19 and the sugarcane.
Right.
I know that back in Pakistan, like few months ago, there were few medications and herbs which gained really popularity because that can treat COVID-19, that can prevent COVID-19. But from the medical point of view, there isn't evidence to suggest that.
राइट कि जैसे मतलब अगर आप जाके गन्ने का जूस वगैरह पीना शुरू कर दें ऑन दैट होप कि आपको नहीं होगा कोविड, तो ये मिथ ही आप इसको डिक्लेयर करेंगे.
Yes, and again, too much of sugar cane is not good for health anyway. Too much sugar.
Right. Okay. Well, there we have it. Now, obviously, you've said a few things about immune system, and we have been hearing all along the way that people who have a weaker immune system are more prone towards the virus. So, what sort of what defines a good immune system, and what is your advice, or what does medical science say about how to maintain a good immune system?
Mhm. I think your comment is very relevant to my subspecialty because I have patients with low immune system all the time, and that is because of the fact that they receive anti-cancer treatment or chemotherapy, which obviously can affect their immune system. Um, let's talk about just general population, like in terms of the immune system, what the things which are important.
Hmm.
Things which are important, they are very basic things. You don't have to have anything extra. You don't have to buy things to be able to have your strong immune system. Just healthy diet. So healthy diet is, as you know, the pyramid, which has got like a portion of carbohydrate, portion of lipid, portion of protein, and then you have some protein, different type of protein, some electrolytes, some
Yeah.
fruits, some vegetables. So this is very common. Like a healthy lifestyle is important to have a good
Right.
immune system, and
Right.
healthy lifestyle means having a good diet, having a bit of exercise, no alcohol or minimal alcohol, and no smoking. And that is to ensure your good, healthy immune system. You do not have to take anything extra to make it more stronger. You would be stronger and your immune system is stronger.
Right. The food pyramid has a couple of glasses of wine in it too. Um, Now, what's the substitute of that, considering our population and our race?
That's interesting that you pointed out that there were like a few uh, um, uh, like intakes of wine as well. But look, I think it's not that wine is necessary. I think it's more of the fluid and again the pyramid. I guess it came from the Western community, and that's why possibly you could see a bit of wine there. But it is not that everyone should have a wine. That's not the recommendation from the food pyramid point of view, and people do not have to have the substitute for that.
Right, right. Moving along towards return travelers, what sort of care, let's say our Pakistani community now, they're going to start travel between Pakistan and Australia. So, what sort of advice, general health advice, you can probably give them?
Mhm. So I guess when we talk about our own community, Pakistani community here in Australia, traveling back to Pakistan or any other country versus returning back from Pakistan, I think that's two groups. First of all, the group which would be traveling from Australia to Pakistan, they should make sure that, I guess, they're aware of the situation in Pakistan. They know which area they're going to go and the prevalence of COVID-19. They should take masks, they should take all the precautions, sanitizer, social distancing. All those things are important. And I think most of the people, they prefer not to travel until there is a real need to return back or go overseas. That is, people traveling from Australia to Pakistan or different area. Now, the travelers which are coming from Pakistan to Australia or any other traveler which are coming from different countries, I think we need to follow the rules. And the rules are, as you know, that quarantine, 2 weeks quarantine, that is important. And there's a reason behind it. We know that if they are COVID positive, then 2 week would be the time period where their illness would come down and they would be less infectious to the community, following the protocol of government getting tested for the COVID-19. And when they come out and they do develop any symptoms, they still make sure that they contact the relevant people because, as I said earlier in my discussion, super spreader, we don't want any more super spreader in the community. What happened with the second wave was there was a breach in the quarantine protocol, and that met the super spreader, a person who was highly infectious, who then spread the coronavirus. And then from one patient, you could contaminate or infect 25 or 50, and then those 50 would contaminate each one with more 50 or 25, and then it just follows on. So I think that travelers coming back quarantine following the government protocols, if they have any symptoms after coming out from quarantine, they still go and get themselves tested. Um, when they come out in community, follow the rules which we are following in Victoria or all over in Australia, wearing masks, using sanitizer, and also maintaining the social distancing. And this is how we can limit the spread of the virus. Even if we get somehow one patient positive for COVID-19, somehow got released from the quarantine or somehow been picked up, if he or she follow the rules, I think they won't be able to spread it in the community.
Right, right. Um, in terms of the, obviously we've established that the immune system is something that protects you from the virus or from any sort of illness that's around. And obviously older people, as we have seen in the recent past, that they, you know, having a weak immune system, they have been the most hard hit by the virus. uh, there was this myth as well that it doesn't get to young people because they have a stronger immune system, until we started to see some cases in the young people. But
Yeah.
however, the ratio is still less in comparison to older people and younger people. Is that purely because of, having, young people have a better immune system than the older people?
I think it's just a chance, but I must say the immune system plays a role. And yes, older patient, not only the immune system, the other thing is they do have multiple medical illnesses, which also prone them to have the infection. And I think what we are seeing nowadays, it's we are seeing COVID-19 more in younger patient or younger people. The good thing is that because of the good immune system, they recover quite quickly. But again, in the past, it was more in uh, aged care, but nowadays we are seeing more in younger patient. But look, I think anyone can have it, whether that's good immune system, bad immune system. But if a good immune system patient or person has an infection, they're going to recover quicker as compared to the poor immune system and old patients where they do have other medical illnesses as
Um, Switching back to the vaccine, Dr. Aisha,
well.
how long do you think that after taking the vaccine, how many years, in fact, do you think we need in order to fully understand how it behaves and reacts in a human body, and what could be the potential side effects that we are yet to see?
Yeah. So I wish I would have a crystal ball to be able to answer this question because they are unknowns because of the fact that that vaccine rolled out quite quicker, although it went through the all the process of phase one, phase two, phase three, but at a smaller scale rather than a larger population, because obviously we are in need to have the vaccine. And I think the long-term effect or side effect we would learn because we haven't seen the long term as yet. This vaccine started sort of coming into play earlier this year when we were hit by the infection. So we haven't sort of completed a year surveillance on patients or people who have received the vaccine. So that's something which I guess we would learn as we go. Although from the basics point of view, it seems that it seems effective. It seems quite or without much of the side effects at the moment. But as I said, that long-term side effects is hard to say.
Right. Um, a slightly political question. When Russia announced that they have got the vaccine, there was this big debate, and a lot of criticism was given to Russia just because of the fact that they were pretty much the first to announce that, okay, listen up, everyone, we have got the vaccine. So, have you read some material about Sputnik 5, or is do you have any comments around that?
I think it's not about who developed the vaccine first. And this is not the race. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about human life. So making sure whatever being developed is effective. And as I said, that whatever we prescribe our patients or whatever we expose our patient to or our community to, we make sure that's safe. And until we do a proper phases of trial, we won't be able to understand nor be able to recommend with confidence that it should be given to human being. And I think from Russia point of view, those things were lacking. From the medical community point of view, there is always a protocol. And as I said, that we do not prescribe, do not recommend any medication unless there is a evidence behind it. So even for COVID-19, although we know that it's a very short time period, but there has to be some evidence to be able to say that it won't harm and it would be effective. And I think that was lacking rather than saying because it was the first country to announce that they can or they have the vaccine.
Right. Um, if we look at what's happening around the world, um, do you think, let's say, if we compare our beautiful down under Australia with America, things are not nowhere near being comparable. You can't compare the two.
No.
um, Obviously, their government and their policymakers, they supposedly value their citizens life, as well as our politician and our policymakers. But things have been totally different in between the two countries. Do you think that people around the world have taken and reacted to COVID differently, and they have adapted different approaches?
Look, I think there's a lot of things which play a role, and I guess politics is one thing, policymakers are the other things, and the population is structured, number of people. and also the resources available. Those all things plays a role what you would recommend for your population. I think from Australia point of view, it's like I say Australia is like a bubble. Like we are I compare Australia as compare with the rest of the world. So it's sort of a bubble. We are sort of contained within the Australia island, like very separated from others. So we are happy that yes, and we don't have any virus. It's easy. And again, I think if I compare population of Australia as compared to US population, it's nowhere near that. Population in US is different. Policymakers are different. Their priorities are different, and number of people population is very different. So I think that they, although they do have resources, but they do have other attractions as compared to people. And I think in Australia the government give high priority to human life, and that's why regardless of it cost us a lot from the economy point of view, but the government or the policymakers, as I said, that it was the prime important bit for them was the human life rather than anything. So those all things, I guess, play a role. I'm happy that I'm an Australian, and I'm happy that I'm living in Australia, and I'm happy I'm in bubble, that bubble, which I believe gonna extend to New Zealand soon.
Yep. I guess we're just approaching the close of this program. Before we get there, I'd like to ask you a question that obviously nobody ever. Well, I should probably rephrase. We weren't expecting a virus to have such impacts and such severe implications on our life before COVID, yeah? So, considering now that we've been through this, obviously, the history and you know how medical science has progressed and things that had appeared in the past. Do you think that um, we should look out for something in the future?
Um, I guess with time, what we can see that lives or human life has become complex and very interactive and very open to anyone, as you know, with the social media and everything. I guess COVID-19 is something which we didn't think about nor expected nor would have thought about that that's what gonna hit us.
Hmm.
It's hard to say what to sort of expect in the future. But I think it's sort of a learning lesson for us that sometimes you just need to stop and look around and make sure that you're doing all right things. And I think reflect on what we have achieved and what we can do better. Um, I guess it's hard to predict what's next. And if you're referring to few theories, you know that like there are many theories coming, like COVID was first and then this would come next and that would come. So it's sort
Yep.
of just trying to come up. And I think it's just like a theories. There isn't any hard evidence nor facts behind it.
Right.
So I guess I would deal with the COVID. I don't want to have anything further like that or similar like COVID. No, I even don't want to think about it.
Right. Right. And you, in your personal opinion, you don't believe that bats were the reason for for COVID?
Look, I think it was like the way it started. I guess this is what we know. This is the story. This is how it all started. But if you start looking into the theories and the stories, I think you could go into the detail of like that was all came from particular place and there was a reason behind it and the vaccine is coming from a particular place as well. So there might be connection and all those. Look, I think we are simple people. We are simple human beings. We don't want any more COVID-19. Leave us alone. And I think we have had enough this year. And as I said, that lives are already so complex. Why to make it more complex on thinking which may well not be there, on
Yeah.
thinking which may make no sense? Just
Yeah.
keep it simple, I guess.
And definitely don't eat bats if you don't have to.
I don't.
Um,
Yeah, no, look, I think definitely.
we've got this question from the same gentleman who asked about sugarcane.
Yeah.
Can you read it on your screen?
What are the best food for me at my age? I'm 17. So, Malik Noman, I think eating healthy is most important regardless of your age. And we talk about the pyramid, having the portion of carbohydrate, lipid, and protein, having lots of fruits and vegetable in your diet, and having a good uh, workout or the exercise. That's more important. And being 17, that is one thing. Yes, you look after yourself, your health, and also assuming you be studying or doing VCE or level or grade 10 or 12 or whatever. So focus on the studies as well. I must say that kids have sort of lost connection with their studies. I'm referring to my own son. He's in year 12 next year, and because of the COVID-19, so he's turning 16. So he's sort of lost connection with the education, and his like it's difficult, has been a difficult year for everyone from different regards. So yes, I think in addition to your diet, focus on your studies as well.
Thank you. I think that's the best piece of advice, and maybe just go light on having sugarcane. Not too much of that.
He might like it, he can have it. You can have it, like a little bit. That's okay.
A little bit. Dr. Aisha Saqib, thank you ever so much for this wonderful chat. It was a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Zuhair. Before I go, I think I would like to say thank you to community to listening to us, and also look. I think community, you have done so well. We all are proud of each other, to be honest. So now we are approaching festive season. Stay safe, follow the protocols, wear masks, maintain social distancing, but have good time with your family because it has been a difficult year. And happy festive season to all.
थैंक यू वेरी मच। हम फिर भी कोशिश करेंगे कि किसी मौके के ऊपर अगर आपको दोबारा हम जहमत दे सके तो वी वुड लव टू हैव यू बैक अगेन।
Thank you, Zoe. I'm always available for PWOA.
थैंक यू
And
वेरी
thanks for PWOA.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर थैंक यू। ख़वातीन और हज़रात, ये था आज का हमारा प्रोग्राम विद डॉक्टर आयशा साकिब। बड़ी अच्छी गुफ्तगू रही। आई एम श्योर आप लोगों को गुफ्तगू सुन के अच्छी और अहम मालूमात मिली होगी। इंशाल्लाह अगली ट्यूसडे को हम फिर किसी यूनिक किसी वाइब्रेंट गेस्ट के साथ आपकी खिदमत में दोबारा हाजिर होंगे। तब तक के लिए ज़ोहैर हुसैन को इजाज़त दीजिए।